You are a monarch. Like your parents before you, a ruler of a small, pleasant kingdom of rivers and evergreens. And like your parents, however, you have hopes and dreams. You want a bigger and more pleasant kingdom, with more rivers and a wider variety of trees. You want a dominion. That never happens. So, Dominion is the 2009 Spiel des Jahres award winner, and it was made by Donald X. Vaccarino and released by Rio Grande Games. Dominion was the very first deck builder game, and it works very well as a nice closer to an evening, or when you're trying to fill in other time. So players will start off with a small deck of copper cards, which they can use to purchase other cards in the game, including silvers and golds, which are more powerful versions of those cards. So for instance, this silver card here costs 3 points to buy, so you'll need to spend 3 coppers to do so. Additionally, you can also purchase these victory point cards, and you'll start the game with a couple of these as well, and you'll need these to win the game. And these ones cost 2, 5, and 8 coins respectively, so you will need to get more treasures to get up to that level. So in addition to these treasure cards and these victory point cards, there are also these action cards. And in a game of Dominion, there is a number of different action cards that come with the game. And in every game, you'll only choose 10 of these that will be in active play. Some of these action cards allow you to draw more cards on your turn, or play more action cards on your turn, because you can only play one normally. Other action cards, such as the Thief, allow you to attack other players' decks directly by removing their treasure cards, which makes it a very powerful card. All players will start a game of Dominion with 7 coppers and 3 estates, which give them 3 victory points to start the game with. On your turn, you'll take this deck of cards, shuffle it, and draw 5 cards to form your starting hand. So in this instance, I have 3 coppers here, and I can use it to purchase any card costing 3. So I can take these 3 and grab a silver, for instance, and add that to my discard pile. I take everything that's in my hand and I discard it immediately. When your deck becomes empty and all your cards are in the discard pile, you would take that and you'd shuffle that to start your deck again. And this cycle keeps going over and over again. And it's fun to see how the different combinations of your old cards work with your new cards that you've just purchased to create some sort of weird synergy that you probably weren't even expecting when you bought those cards. So basically this game is as simple as ABC. A, you play an action card. B, you buy a card. C, you clean up, you put everything in your discard pile and you draw a fresh new hand. Simple as that. Now here's the kicker. When you buy a card, it stays in your deck for the rest of the game. So your early game purchases will come back and affect you in the late game, making your decisions very important. If you purchase these victory point cards early on, they clog your deck, but you need them to win the game. So it's trying to find that perfect balance of deciding when to start buying victory points or when to stop buying other different cards. There's no right answer, and there's many different strategies in any game. During each turn, you can only play one action card, except for when they have action cards that give you additional actions. And so for instance, this card here says Laboratory, which is +2 cards, +1 action. So if you play this, you draw 2 more cards from your deck, and you may play another action card like, say, another Laboratory, drawing you 2 more cards and another action until you play another Laboratory, and then another Laboratory, and then another Laboratory, until you end up drawing your entire deck and watching as your opponent just cringes with the size of your hand. That's not a euphemism. So, because you end each turn with a fresh hand, you can make your decisions while other players are taking their turns, which means the game can move very quickly. Except for when someone does those crazy long chains of multiple cards, but then it's usually quite fun because you get to see whether or not it actually worked for them, or they just played 20 cards in a row and get 4 copper and they just have to buy another sword because there's nothing else they really want. Which can be quite funny as well, when you see luck fail against an opponent. A game of Dominion ends when either 3 of these action card piles are gone, or all of these very expensive victory point card provinces are gone. Now, so this leads to a bit of a cold war for most of the game, as players are determining when's the best time to start buying these provinces. And often you'll find that when one player starts buying them, everyone else will take a mad rush to try and get them before they're all gone. So the fun of this game is all about looking at all these different decisions and trying to find which one of these work well together. And you'll find that no 2 players will come up with the same strategy here. And some people will fill their decks with just terrible synergy and they won't be able to accomplish much. And some people will just create these massive free-flowing combos. In this game, typically the person that comes with the best strategy will win. Typically. Sometimes the player that's been sitting there behind for most of the game, buying action cards and not buying many of these victory point cards, may come through at the end with a massive turn where they get something like 30 coin and as many buys as they want, they can just pick up half of these provinces, winning them the game. Element of luck and the variation in all of these different action cards mean that it is never a solved game. There is never one best strategy. There are sometimes better strategies and sometimes worse strategies. There are some cards in here that are underpowered, there are some cards that seem a little overpowered, but you'll always find that every game will have a different strategy that is the dominant, best strategy. And working that out is half the fun. Now, the thing we really like about Dominion is the sheer variation. In the base set of the game, there are 25 different action cards, but there are many expansions that add a lot more. Christoph! So the first one we have here is Intrigue. Now, Intrigue gives you cards that have multiple options that you have to choose from when you play it. Makes it a little bit more strategic, really, really clever. Next one, Christoph. Now, next one is Seaside. Seaside has duration effects, which affect you on the next turn, meaning that you have to think far in advance what you're doing. Really good. Next turn. Next one we have is Alchemy. Alchemy gives you potions, and these potions you have to spend to get more and more cards. That's some really powerful cards, but it's very hard. Makes the game quite a bit longer. Next one. The next one is Prosperity. Prosperity adds in colonies and platinums, which makes the game level up even, you could say. It adds in lots of cards that have more effects, lot longer effects. Really good. Next one. Next one we have is Cornucopia. Cornucopia rewards you for having more variation in your deck, gives you more victory points if you've got lots more variants. Really good. Next one. Hinterlands. Hinterlands adds in additional effects where you gain more cards when you buy other cards. And really, next one. Next one is Dark Ages. Dark Ages completely changes the game, makes everything really hard. You have to cards added to your deck that you don't want to. You can destroy other people's decks. Very aggressive. Next one. Next one is Guilds. Guilds add in the ability to buy coins that can be used later on in the game. Make it stop. So you can see that there's so many different expansions here, each adding so much more unique aspects to the game that it's a different game when you combine these. Each one of these is compatible with each other, meaning that the number of possible actions is enormous. If you count up the number of action cards that are provided by all the expansions, there are 205 different action cards. And since you only choose 10 in a game, the number of possible games out there is 29 quadrillion. That's 29 with 15 zeros after it. You will never play this game the same twice. You will never have the same starting situation. So the problem with owning all these expansions is it can get quite messy as you're pulling different cards out of different boxes to try and get what you want to play with. And the way that you actually select the Kingdom cards that you play for that particular game is you take a randomizer deck, which has one of every card, you shuffle it, and then you choose 10 from it. But if you want to combine all of these together, you need to grab each of the randomizers out, shuffle it, and it can get pretty messy and annoying. There is, however, an app available called Dominion Shuffle, where you can select which expansions you own, and it will randomly select 10 Kingdom cards for you to play with. It's a must-have app if you've got this game with this many expansions, because otherwise it's a little bit too messy. So, who would like this game? Well, it can be played by anyone. The box says 13+, but I reckon you can play with even younger than that. It's a great filler game, or a great starter game, or a great ender game for a night. I don't think I could play this game non-stop for an entire night, but it's really good to bring it out after your bigger, longer games, or when you've got a bit of time to kill while someone else is playing another game, for instance, and you're waiting for that to finish. If you want to play longer games, you can play with some of the more advanced expansions, or if you want to play a quick game, you just play a simple base version of the game. It really feels like many different games in one, just following these very simple rules, and it's always different. A valid question that some people often ask is, which order do you buy them in? If you only want to buy one or two expansions, which ones are the best? Personally, I think that Seaside is a great one to start with. It adds those duration effects. Prosperity is the next logical step because it adds in some really nice depth to the game, makes the game a bit longer and very much more strategic in my opinion. Intrigue is probably the next best one. There's some nice cards in there. Then I'd go Cornucopia, Hinterlands, Dark Ages, Guilds, and then Alchemy. Alchemy is one of these ones that has some nice elements to it, but it's really not essential at all, really. So that concludes our Dominion review. Please leave a comment, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time on the Board Game Nights. So, in addition to these treasure cards,